As November begins, traffic moving along Highway 30 has a fresh distraction just past the airport. A protest group have set up a roadside camp. Despite reports that the airport expansion issues regarding the kahikatea trees belonging to members of the local iwi had been solved, there are clearly some who are still not happy. Trees aligned to the airport flight path are scheduled to have their height trimmed, but there are fears that the trees may not survive this amputation. It's also an expression of long simmering iwi infighting, a power struggle that will inevitably involve stalling tactics and plenty of further heated discussion. Certainly the reaction is heated to this Daily Post headline as a board member of the Bay of Plenty Rugby Union fires the opening shots in a serious campaign to move the whole focus of Bay Rugby to Tauranga.
When John Brady left the Bay Rugby Union, Craig Ross, who was a former Bay captain, came in and did it as an interim, and he was adamant that rugby was going to move from Rotorua to Tauranga, and he pretty much ran a campaign supported by obviously board members and sponsors at the time of the Steamers to get them away from here and to just continually in the media pump that there wasn't people at the games and Rotorua was going to lose games if people didn't go along. Rotorua people just basically listened to that and decided, I don't even want to go anymore.
Craig Tiriana has already devoted many column inches in the Post's sport pages to setting out the issues. Like any good local newspaper, the Daily Post is quick to respond. Initially, arguments centre on the reliability of reported crowd numbers, with claims that figures are being manipulated in Tauranga's favour. Unlike Rotorua Stadium, Tauranga's domain doesn't have turnstiles, nor does it have most of the facilities deemed essential for a modern ground.
I was the chairman of the Rotorua Rugby Sub-Union at the particular time. Disappointment. The coaching shifted from out of the stadium, was shifting out of the stadium here over into Tauranga. And Tauranga's teams were playing good rugby, there's no question about it. And they had more population, more teams, more votes, and we were diminishing. We were getting less teams, less votes. Whakatane couldn't help us, they were in the same situation. So it was a rule of thumb, numbers counts.
Mayor Graham Hall fires his broadside in the following edition, questioning how closely Craig Ross's reported statements reflect the full board's position. While he's mindful of Bay Rugby's present delicate financial circumstances, he also has an expensive revamped stadium that only went ahead through Bay Union encouragement, and a big input from the Rotorua community. A stadium now threatened to become a white elephant. At least Rotorua's art lovers have something to cheer about, as a long-held dream becomes a reality. The Rotorua Arts Village Experience, RAVE for short, officially opens its doors. It's a concept which has already won awards for the way this multi-function centre has brought together groups from across the community spectrum. Among the dignitaries attending the opening is Judith Keeney, the newly appointed chair of the Energy Charitable Trust, whose Millennium gift to the city included the funding to enable the Arts Centre to be completed. By the middle of November, the Bay Rugby war of words reaches a new crescendo. This headline is sparked by the resignation of Neville Nicholson, Rotorua's sole member of the Bay Union Board. The Daily Post issues a stern editorial calling for the matter to be settled, but admits that things don't bode well for the future of top-level rugby matches in the city. As summer approaches, the rising tempo of city activity is matched by a growing climate of uncertainty. For example, while the retailers of the rest of the CBD have accepted and adapted to the presence of Pukeroa Auruafota's Central Mall, now comes the news that a major mall tenant, the Warehouse, wants to increase their premises by a third. But will the District Council approve zoning changes needed to allow that expansion to go ahead? In addition, Pukeroa Auruafota Holdings are making one more bid in their battle to establish a casino. This time they're going to the public for support by attempting to hold an informal referendum through the pages of the Daily Post. The premise is that the community, not politicians, should be making the casino decision. Meanwhile at Rotorua Airport, and after 4 years of negotiation, a carefully contrived tree trust to deal with the kahikatea issue is still causing iwi dissension. Appointment of trustees is being questioned and will be challenged in the Maori Land Court. While uncertainty over the future of Central North Island forests has been an ongoing feature of 2002, now in November a possible new element of debate is introduced. Because of its softness, pine has long been chemically preserved to make it more durable. For more than 50 years, a solution containing copper, chrome and arsenic has been used in large pressure tanks to treat wood that will be used out of doors. Although the CCA treatment is known to be very effective in both the United States and England, there has been a strong lobby to have its use phased out. There are claims of serious health risks. Operators of Rotorua treatment plants providing this heavy-duty protection are now carefully watching as a similar New Zealand campaign seems to be getting underway. By the end of November, there is a war of words as the suppliers of wood treatment solutions like Tantalise defend their product. They dispute the claims that it's unsafe and point out that especially for stuff like fence posts, there is no real alternative to good old CCA. Health has also been under discussion at Ohinimutu, where, in response to troubling figures seen in earlier reports, a new national Maori health strategy is unveiled. It's a positive start to an exercise aimed at finding ways to promote better Maori access to health services and a stronger say in the delivery of those services. It's all part of what Health Board Chairman Stuart Edward calls a broad brush approach to a serious issue.
It's much bigger than just simply, in my view in any case, than just simply getting people to have a better statistic. The health statistics are a worry and have been a worry in terms of the morbidity. The people dying 10 years earlier has enormous effect. I've seen it on the pai down at Te Arawa. The people that should still be there have died off much earlier than they should. And so you notice those things and see them as an absolute tragedy for not only the Māori community but all of us.
The hui that occurred in 2002, prior to that in 2001 there were a number of consultative hui with iwi, hapu across Te Arawa and Ngāti Tū Wharetoa, where the District Health Board, the Chair, the CEO and board members went to iwi and said, this is the new developing health environment. We're required to establish a relationship with you, so tell us how that needs to work. So that was in 2002 was the signing of the first Memorandum of Understanding between Te Arawa and the Lakes District Health Board to formalise the relationship and how it was they were going to work together around improving Māori health outcomes, reducing inequalities and achieving health equity. So it was a very significant time for the District Health Board and for iwi, and certainly at the hui we heard people express many issues around their concerns that they'd had with healthcare delivery generally, and we also heard people celebrate and acknowledge some of the good things that they'd experienced in health. So I certainly believe that it was a real challenge for our District Health Board to say, here are the people don't forget who the people are, and make sure that when we're sitting at the decision-making table, that we're working truly for this community.
But while the District Health Board has been able to take advantage of a new regime to take a creative approach to a vexing problem, there have been some casualties along the way. In December, the action at the lakefront gathers pace with the warmer weather. But not far away sits an organisation that is far removed from the sights and sounds of summer. The Rotorua Hospice is devoted to the care and comfort of those going through the process of living their last days. The work the hospice carries out provides with it very strong emotional ties to the community. There are many who contribute time and financial support, but in fact the bulk of its funding comes by way of a contract with the District Health Board. Now the Daily Post reports that the funding may be substantially reduced as the Health Board reviews the administration of contracts negotiated by the previous health regime.
One of the really difficult things about government in this, in my view in any case, is the fact that you change things and there's always someone who's going to get hurt and burnt. And with the change of policy, for whatever reason, there's always fallout. And the change from the Regional Health Authority to the DHB was part of that.
But when the subject of the issue is as delicate as the future of the hospice, that fallout is certain to be highly emotive. And so it proves to be, as sometimes anguished letters start to arrive at the local papers. If the proposed funding cuts go ahead, the hospice is going to have to seek even more financial support from within the community. Community support, or rather the lack of it, continues to lie behind the ongoing controversy of rugby venues. A resolution seems in sight, and it hasn't gone Rotorua's way. The Bay Union announces a lucrative new Tauranga-based sponsor that will ease their financial burdens for the next season. But there is a price. The sponsorship is conditional on all NPC games being played in Tauranga. Many local supporters see this in terms of a betrayal. A Daily Post editorial tends to agree with this outlook. Ultimately, what rankles is the fact that despite having what is acknowledged as possibly the best regional rugby venue in the country, Rotorua can no longer cut it against a centre with a far larger and far faster growing population base. Sponsorship is at the heart of another popular local event that is under threat. For the past 5 years, the Rally of Rotorua has been a high-profile midwinter attraction, part of the Asia-Pacific series. The district's back roads make an ideal venue for this brand of motorsport. Now a new sponsor is needed, but approaches by the rally organisers to Tourism Rotorua have fallen on deaf ears. There is a suggestion that there is another central North Island town that would be very happy to take over the event. At the District Council, the debating chamber welcomes Rotorua's newest councillor.
Unfortunately, one thing you learn when you become a politician, there's always rumour, you know. And there was rumour that Mike McVicker had said he was going to win, and there was no chance I was going to win, and he was going around telling everyone. So I didn't take much notice of that, but just got out and encouraged people to vote and things like that. But I was delighted, absolutely thrilled, really thrilled.
Janet Wepa has won the West Ward by-election by a 500-vote majority. She'll be the first councillor that hasn't experienced the old regime of Hall, Hanson and Lepper.
Being on a by-election and newbie, you find out later that it's really hard. It's like you're just thrown in the deep end. All the councillors that get in now, you know, through a normal process get inductions and it's all lovely, but you just get chucked in the deep end. There was quite a number of people in the gallery that night. There isn't always, but there was that night.
She's arrived just in time to see the council approve changes to the zoning of Central Mall, which will enable the warehouse to increase its size by a third. But for the moment, she can only watch and listen.
The reason I was sitting in the gallery is that I was elected, and then you've got to have a certain number of weeks before you can actually be formally inducted. So it was decided, because it was so close to Christmas, that they would wait until the new year.
There have been changes to top-level council management as well.
We felt that we needed more administrative support devoted directly to each of the directors, as they were called in those days. And so that led to a change in the way we organised part of that level within the organisation. And it was a bit of a sad time in some ways, because some of the people that were affected by that change had been with us a long time, very loyal, long-serving staff. And they didn't like the structure that we had proposed and saw other opportunities elsewhere. So I think they're all enjoying new vocations.
It's now the week before Christmas and Rotorua is getting ready to move into holiday mode. At the District Health Board, there's a sense of relief. They've received an early Christmas gift with the news that the country's health services will receive an extra $137 million in the next financial year. Lakeland's share of that, around $9 million, should enable them to wipe old debt and be back on a sound financial footing within a few years. But more immediately, impassioned letters to the editor continue to keep the hospice issue to the forefront of the Daily Post. By now, local MP Steve Chadwick has waded in to support the Health Board. But it is becoming clear both she and Stuart Edward have seriously misjudged the depth of community sympathy to the social importance of hospice and anything that might affect its work. As Rotorua slides into full holiday mode at the end of December, there are two bits of news that seem to sum up a year that has seen a growing sense of uncertainty developing for many in the Rotorua community. There have been so many ups and downs. Now on the downside comes the news that Marama Point, a complex of homes constructed on the banks of the Ohau Channel and only opened with great fanfare a year ago, has gone into receivership due to construction problems. At the same time, a report announces there are positive plans to redevelop one of the city's worst eyesores. The multiplex theatre building, derelict since the mid-1990s, may be about to get a new lease of life. The Daily Post prints its last editorial for the year. Jill Nicholas heads it, "A Fair Year for a City of Beauty," with reference to the third award of the title of New Zealand's most beautiful city. There is also a comment on the city's blemished reputation for a high crime rate, particularly targeting tourists, and the sad loss in September of Rotorua's Deputy Mayor, Johnny Lepper. The airport gets a mention for being the ongoing story of the year, and the part it and First Division Rugby had played in what appears to be a growing push towards regionalisation. If uncertainty has been an outstanding feature of 2002, at least for most of us, there should now be a few weeks of respite in the summer sun. But if one thing is almost certain, it's that the condition of uncertainty is something that Rotorua is going to have to get used to as the district looks ahead to 2003.